This story is titled, After Ending Up in ICU from Workplace Accident, My Fiancée Never Visited, claiming the trip wasn't worth her money and hoping for either my quick recovery or death. Her child expressed not missing me, so upon early discharge, I disappeared with all possessions including the pet, leading to her public meltdown outside the vacant property. Hey Reddit, I'm 44 years old and have been married to Jessica, 41, for 8 years now. When we got married, she brought her son Tyler into our lives. He was just 8 years old when I first met him, and he's now 16. I really tried with the kid from the beginning. I built him a treehouse, taught him how to fish, the whole stepdad package, you know? I wanted to be there for him in ways my own stepfather never was for me. Jessica and I weren't exactly relationship goals, but I thought we were solid. We had our routine, our inside jokes, our life together. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I believed in what we had built. Everything changed 51 days ago. I was working at a construction site when a support beam gave way. Long story short, I ended up with a crushed leg, 3 broken ribs, and a punctured lung. The doctors later told me I was lucky to be alive. To be honest, I haven't been feeling particularly lucky these days. That first night in the hospital is still fuzzy in my memory. The pain medications had me floating in and out of consciousness. I remember calling Jessica, telling her not to bring Tyler because it looked pretty bad. I didn't want to scare the kid. She assured me she'd come first thing in the morning. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Morning came, but Jessica didn't. Day 2 passed, and still no Jessica. I figured she was dealing with Tyler or maybe had work stuff to handle. I called her that evening, and she answered while watching some reality show. I could hear it blaring in the background. She casually mentioned she'd try to make it tomorrow, like visiting her seriously injured husband was just another errand on her to-do list. Day 3 arrived, and Jessica was still a no-show. By day 5, I was starting to get seriously worried. Not about our relationship, but about her. Had she been in an accident? Did something happen to Tyler? I asked a nurse if my wife had called the hospital. Nothing. I tried calling again, but my calls went straight to voicemail. This pattern continued. 1 week turned into 2. The nurses started giving me these pitying looks. One of them, Olivia, 34, would sit with me during her break sometimes. She never asked why my wife wasn't visiting, but I could see the question in her eyes every time she checked my vitals or brought my medications. 3 weeks into my hospital stay, I was finally moved from the ICU to a regular room. By then, I'd managed to get Jessica on the phone exactly twice. Both calls lasted less than 3 minutes. She always had somewhere to be, something to do. Our dog Max was sick. The dishwasher was leaking. Tyler had a game. Always something more important than spending time with her husband, who was recovering from life-threatening injuries. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about our 8th anniversary just 2 months ago. Jessica had seemed distant the entire evening, constantly checking her phone. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled and said, "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" I remember thinking it was a weird response, but I let it go. Talk about foreshadowing. My life was turning into a bad movie, and I didn't even know I was the main character yet. 4 weeks into my hospital stay, I underwent my 3rd surgery on my leg. Still no visit from Jessica. My sister Madeline came by almost daily, bringing actual home-cooked food and updates about Max. The dog was fine, by the way, despite Jessica's claims about him being sick. One afternoon, Madeline hesitated before leaving, then asked if I wanted her to talk to Jessica. About what? I asked, although I already knew the answer. The look on Madeline's face said it all. My sister has never been able to hide her feelings. We grew up in a house where you said what you meant or didn't say anything at all. About the fact that she hasn't visited her husband in the hospital for 28 days, Madeline finally said, her voice gentle but firm. Something broke inside me then. Not my heart. More like the bubble of denial I'd been living in since the accident. I asked Madeline to check our joint bank account. Call it a hunch. Call it finally waking the hell up to reality. 2 days later, Madeline brought my laptop and helped me log into our banking. What I saw made my blood pressure spike so high that a nurse came running when the monitors went crazy. $7,500 withdrawn over the past month. ATM withdrawals mostly. A few transfers to an account I didn't recognize. And a charge from a jewelry store. Jessica doesn't wear jewelry except her wedding ring and the necklace I got her last Christmas. That night, I made the call that changed everything. Jessica actually picked up for once. I didn't mention the money, just asked when she was planning to visit. Look, the hospital's like 40 minutes away, she said. I could hear her chewing something. dinner time, apparently, while I was eating hospital food that tasted like cardboard. Gas is like $5 a gallon right now, and with everything else. Everything else? I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. A pause on the line. Well, yeah, I'm basically a single parent right now. Tyler has stuff, the house needs work, that leaky roof isn't fixing itself. I reminded her that my sister had offered to pick her up multiple times, that friends had offered to drive her, that we had more than enough money for gas. Or at least we did before she started making all those withdrawals. I couldn't help myself. The words just slipped out. That's when she said it. The words I'll never forget as long as I live. You're not worth the gas money, Norman. Either die fast or heal quick, but I'm sick of this in between. I must have made some sound, because she immediately started backpedaling. Said she was stressed, said she didn't mean it. But I wasn't really hearing her anymore. The ringing in my ears was too loud, drowning out her excuses. Then Tyler got on the phone. Guess he was right there the whole time, listening to his mother tell his stepfather to hurry up and die. We don't miss you, he said, his voice cracking like he was trying to sound tougher than he felt. Mom's friend Victor has been helping with everything. Victor, our neighbor. The guy who moved in 6 months ago and was always offering to help Jessica with things around the house when I was working late. Suddenly, everything was falling into place, and the picture wasn't pretty. I hung up. Didn't say another word. Just pressed the red button and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, replaying every moment of the past few months in my head, looking for signs I'd missed. Morning came, marking day 36 of my hospital stay. Olivia brought me an extra pudding cup with my meds, a small kindness that nearly broke me after the night I'd had. Rough night? She asked, noticing my untouched breakfast tray. I told her everything. Not sure why. Maybe because she was the one person who'd been consistently kind without wanting anything from me. She listened without interrupting, her face showing more emotion than I could muster at that point. When I finished, she said something that stuck with me. Some people show you who they are during the good times. The smart ones pay attention. The rest of us have to learn during the bad times. The next 2 weeks were a blur of physical therapy, doctor visits, and secret planning. I told the hospital staff not to give Jessica any information if she called. She didn't. I had Madeline bring me documents from our home office while Jessica was at work. I made some calls using Madeline's phone to avoid Jessica seeing them on our shared phone bill. Meanwhile, I started tracking the bank accounts daily. More withdrawals, more unexplained expenses, a charge for 2 plane tickets to Belize. Jessica hates the beach, always has. Says the sand gets everywhere. Yet somehow she was planning a beach vacation while I was in the hospital. One afternoon, Madeline came in looking nervous. She said she'd driven by our house and seen Victor's car in the driveway at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, when Jessica was supposed to be at work. I didn't explode, didn't cry. Instead, I felt this strange calm settle over me, like everything finally made sense. The pieces of the puzzle were all there, and the picture they formed was ugly but clear. That night, I asked Olivia what it would take for me to check myself out early. The doctors wanted me to stay another 3 weeks minimum. My leg was still in a massive brace. I could barely walk with a walker. But I needed to move before Jessica emptied our accounts completely. AMA, Olivia said, leaning against the doorframe of my room. Against medical advice, but Norman, you're still healing. The infection risk alone. I can't stay here, I told her, my mind already made up. Not anymore. She helped me understand what I'd need for home care. Helped me find a medical supply company that would deliver equipment. Even gave me the number of a home health service that could check on me regularly. Day 51 arrived. I signed the AMA papers. My doctor spent 30 minutes trying to talk me out of it, emphasizing that I was risking serious complications. I told him I'd risk more by staying. Madeline picked me up in her SUV with the back seats folded down so I could keep my leg elevated during the drive. As we pulled away from the hospital, she asked the obvious question. Where to? I watched the hospital disappear in the side mirror. 51 days, not one visit from my wife. Not home, I said, having already made my decision. Take me to the Sunbridge Hotel on Oakwood Avenue. I made a reservation, extended stay. For how long? Madeline asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I thought about Jessica and Tyler and Victor, about the missing money and the beach trip, about 8 years of building a life with someone who couldn't be bothered to visit me in the hospital once. As long as it takes, I said firmly. I've got plans to make. Madeline glanced at me, then back at the road. You're going nuclear, aren't you? For the first time in 51 days, I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. more like the kind you see on someone who's finally decided to stop taking punches. No, I'm going to give Jessica exactly what she deserves. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's how Operation Empty House began. What happened next would change all of our lives forever. First, I want to thank everyone for all the support and messages. I wasn't expecting this story to blow up like it did. Some of you called my story fake. Weird flex, but okay. Others wanted immediate updates. Sorry it took a few days to get back to you all, but it turns out managing revenge while still healing from major injuries is actually a massive time suck. So where was I? Right, the Sunbridge Hotel on Oakwood Avenue. I'm not going to lie, that first night was rough. The hotel room seemed massive and empty compared to my hospital room. No nurses checking vitals every 4 hours. No beeping machines. Just me, my thoughts, and a leg that felt like it was being stabbed repeatedly. I ended up binging some cooking competition show until 4 a.m. because the pain meds weren't cutting it. Every time I shifted position, it was like my leg was reminding me of all the ways my life had fallen apart. Madeline brought me breakfast the next morning. Those little microwavable breakfast sandwiches and the strongest coffee known to mankind. I found her scrolling through comments on a neighborhood social media group, her face growing increasingly irritated. That's when I learned Jessica had posted about her heroic husband fighting for his life and asking for prayers during this difficult time, complete with a 5-year-old picture of us on vacation. The timestamp showed she'd posted it 3 days after my accident and never mentioned me again publicly. Just that one post for the sympathy and attention, then nothing. The absolute gall of this woman was breathtaking. Madeline wanted me to call Jessica immediately. Tell her I knew everything. Go scorched earth on social media. Part of me wanted that too. The messy public meltdown where everyone would see what she'd done. It was tempting to expose her lies and watch the fallout from a safe distance. But something Olivia said at the hospital kept echoing in my head. The best revenge isn't just planned, it's patient. So instead of rage texting, I made a list. I opened the Notes app on my phone and just started typing everything I needed to do. Find a lawyer, document assets, figure out what happened with our money, get my own bank account, find a permanent place to live, get Max priority. Madeline helped me find a lawyer who could come to the hotel since I still couldn't drive. A guy named Daniel showed up the next day in jeans and sneakers, carrying a backpack instead of a briefcase. Not what I expected from legal counsel, but turns out Daniel was exactly what I needed. Practical, straightforward, and apparently specialized in complicated domestic situations. The first thing Daniel asked was whether I wanted divorce or just separation. I hadn't even gotten that far in my thinking, to be honest. But the answer came quicker than I expected. Divorce, I said without hesitation. Definitely divorce. We spent 3 hours going through everything. The house bought before marriage but refinanced together. The cars, one in each name. The bank accounts, mostly joint. The retirement funds, separate. Daniel took notes on his tablet, occasionally letting out a low whistle as I detailed Jessica's behavior. So she hasn't visited you once in the hospital? He asked, looking up from his notes. 51 days, not once, I confirmed. He shook his head in disbelief. And you're sure about the withdrawals? The trips? This Victor guy? I showed him the bank statements, the credit card charges, the social media posts Madeline had screenshotted where Jessica had checked in at restaurants I'd never heard of. Always with a friend who was never tagged. Here's where we stand, Daniel finally said. In this state, you're entitled to half of all marital assets, but there's a catch. You need proof of what exists before she starts hiding things. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Not from pain this time, but from planning. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, spinning through possibilities. Jessica thought I was still in the hospital. She had no idea I knew about Victor, the money, any of it. That gave me an advantage I couldn't waste. Day 3 at the hotel, I created a new email account and ordered a burner phone online. Then I texted Jessica from my regular phone, telling her the doctors were keeping me longer. I said the reception was spotty and I'd call when I could. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Not even actual words. Just 8 years of marriage reduced to a single emoji. Somehow that hurt more than it should have. The next week was all about documentation. Madeline went to our house while Jessica was at work and photographed everything. Every room, every drawer, every closet. She brought back all my important papers. Birth certificate, social security card, passport, and also snagged some clothes and my backup laptop. Meanwhile, I was busy opening new accounts at a different bank, setting up direct deposit for my paychecks from my electrician job going forward, and transferring my half of our savings. Not a penny more, not a penny less, as Daniel advised. I also canceled our joint credit cards and got my own. Finding an apartment while barely mobile wasn't easy. I ended up doing virtual tours on my laptop and found a ground floor unit in a building with an elevator about 15 minutes from my old house. I signed the lease digitally and paid the deposit from my new account. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, I was still using a walker but making progress. Jessica had called exactly twice, both times for less than a minute. Always too busy to talk. Always rushing somewhere. I kept up the act, telling her I was doing physical therapy twice a day and the doctors were pleased with my progress. That's when I found out through Madeline that Jessica was planning a girls' weekend with her friends. 3 days in Chicago, leaving Friday morning, coming back Sunday night. Perfect timing doesn't even begin to cover it. It was like the universe was finally cutting me a break after months of misery. I called a moving company and scheduled them for Saturday, paying extra for packing services. I made a detailed inventory of what was mine before the marriage, what we bought together, and what was exclusively hers. Daniel reviewed it all, making adjustments to keep everything legal and above board. The waiting was the hardest part. By Thursday night, I was practically vibrating with nervous energy. What if Jessica canceled her trip? What if she came home early? What if Tyler stayed behind? 1,000 what-ifs running through my head on repeat. Friday morning came. Madeline drove past our house at 7 a.m. Jessica's car was gone, replaced by an airport shuttle van loading luggage. Operation Empty House was officially a go. Madeline picked me up from the hotel at noon on Saturday. By then, I'd progressed from a walker to crutches. Still slow as hell, but mobile enough to supervise the move. We arrived at the house just as the moving truck pulled up. 4 guys, all business. I had my keys, my inventory list, and a determination I didn't know I possessed. Walking into my house after almost 70 days away felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but somehow different. Like walking onto a set of a TV show about my life rather than my actual home. Photos of Jessica and me on the walls. Mail piled on the kitchen counter. Tyler's shoes in the entryway. Most surprising was how spotless the house was. Magazine perfect clean. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never seen it this tidy. Apparently, Jessica only broke out the good housekeeping for Victor, not her husband. That stung, but I pushed the feeling aside. I had work to do. Max came bounding down the stairs when he heard my voice, nearly knocking me over despite my crutches. 80 pounds of pure canine joy, whining and licking and wiggling like his tail might fly off. That moment, my dog remembering me after months away, almost broke me. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom for a minute to pull it together. The movers were efficient, starting with the big furniture first. The bedroom set I'd bought before marriage. The living room furniture we'd picked together, but split 50-50ths. My office setup. My tools from the garage. Jessica's stuff stayed untouched. Her vanity, her closet full of clothes, her craft room supplies. Tyler's room was trickier. Legally, I had no obligation to the kid, but emotionally, that was another story. I'd helped raise him for 8 years. Taught him to ride a bike. Helped with science fair projects. In the end, I left everything except the gaming setup I'd bought him last Christmas. That came with me. Around 4 p.m., Madeline ordered pizza for everyone. We sat on moving blankets in the half-empty living room, eating straight from the box. One of the movers asked why we were leaving some stuff behind. I just said we were separating households. He nodded like he'd seen it all before. I guess in his line of work, he probably had. By 7 p.m., the truck was loaded. I did one final walkthrough, making sure I'd taken exactly what I was entitled to. No more, no less. I found myself standing in our bedroom, staring at the wedding photo on Jessica's nightstand. I considered taking it, then decided to leave it. Let her deal with that memory. The new apartment was chaos that night. Boxes everywhere. Furniture in random places because I couldn't help much with arranging it. Max kept sniffing everything, clearly confused about where we were. Madeline stayed until almost midnight, helping unpack essentials and setting up my bed. When she finally left, the silence was deafening. Just me and Max in a strange place, surrounded by the physical remnants of my old life. I sat on the couch, awkwardly positioned in the middle of the living room, scrolling through my phone. Jessica had posted pics from Chicago, all smiles with her friends. #girls weekend, #best life. Meanwhile, her actual house was half empty. The next day was Sunday. Jessica and Tyler would be coming home that evening. I kept expecting anxiety to kick in, but instead felt this weird calm, like watching a movie I already knew the ending to. Around 6 p.m., my phone lit up with a text from Madeline. They're home, waiting for the fallout. At 6:47 p.m., my phone exploded. First came the text from Jessica. Where is all our stuff? What did you do? Are you serious right now? Then the calls started, one after another. I watched them come in but didn't answer. After the 6th call, I turned my phone off completely. An hour later, my burner phone pinged with a text from Madeline. You need to see this. She'd sent a video clip from her doorbell camera. Madeline lives across the street and 2 houses down from us, close enough to see our front door. The video showed Jessica standing on our front lawn, screaming at the house. Hands wild, face contorted. The audio was crystal clear. He took everything! Even the goddamn dog! Who does this? Max looked up when he heard her voice on the video, tilted his head like he was trying to understand, then went back to chewing his bone. Completely unbothered. Smart dog. Later that night, I turned my regular phone back on. 17 missed calls. 32 text messages. 4 voicemails. I listened to just one. Jessica's voice shaking. You can't just disappear with our stuff. This isn't legal. I'm calling the police. I forwarded it to Daniel, who responded within minutes. Let her call. Everything we did was by the book. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Jessica. Subject line, we need to talk. The body contained just 3 lines. I know you're upset, but this is extreme. Call me. We can work this out. Jay, no apology. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just Jessica expecting to control the situation like always. I didn't respond. Instead, I had Daniel send her a formal letter outlining exactly what I had taken and why, along with divorce papers. Legal, methodical, and completely by the book. That afternoon, while sorting through boxes in my new kitchen, I found something I'd forgotten about. The anniversary card Jessica had given me 2 months before my accident. Inside, she'd written, "To many more years of building our life together." I stared at it for a long time, this evidence of a promise already broken when it was made. Then I took a photo, texted it to Jessica with a single question. Was Victor already in the picture when you wrote this? She read it immediately. Started typing, stopped, started again. Finally, it's complicated. That's when I knew I'd made the right decision. Some things aren't complicated at all. All right, here's the final update you've all been asking for. Sorry for the delay. Life's been, well, a lot. First, thanks for all the support and messages. Never expected my personal dumpster fire would resonate with so many people. Your comments have been a lifeline during some really dark moments. It's been 3 months since Operation Empty House. 3 months of rebuilding my life while watching my old one implode from a safe distance. The weirdest part? I kept finding bobby pins in random places for weeks. In my shoes, in a box of kitchen utensils, between sofa cushions. Each tiny piece of metal like a little reminder of the life I'd left behind. Kind of fitting that even after taking only what was mine, pieces of Jessica still found a way to stick around uninvited. After my last update, things got messy fast. Jessica went from angry texts to tearful voicemails within 48 hours. The emotional whiplash was something to behold. 1 minute threatening legal action, the next begging me to come home and talk. Classic manipulation 101. I'd seen this pattern 100 times before in our marriage, just never recognized it for what it was. Day 3 post-move, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something told me to answer. It was Tyler. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered, like he'd somehow shrunk in the weeks since I'd seen him. He asked if he could come see me. Just to talk. No Jessica, no drama, just us. I hesitated. The kid had hurt me too with that "we don't miss you" comment. But 8 years of being his stepdad doesn't just evaporate overnight. I told him he could come the next day after school. Gave him the address, but made him promise not to tell his mom. Madeline thought I was being naive. Said it was probably a trap. Jessica using Tyler to find out where I lived. Maybe she was right, but I had to know. Had to see if there was anything worth salvaging there. Tyler showed up right on time, wearing the hoodie I'd gotten him last Christmas. He stood awkwardly in the doorway of my new apartment, eyes taking in the half-unpacked boxes and makeshift furniture arrangement. Max went nuts when he saw him. Tail wagging, jumping all over the poor kid. What came next was maybe the most honest conversation I've ever had with my stepson. We sat on the balcony drinking sodas and watching traffic below, Tyler staring at his shoes while he talked. He told me Jessica and Victor had been seeing each other for almost a year. Said he'd overheard them talking about me while I was in the hospital. Jessica saying how convenient my accident was, giving them more time together. The kicker? The "we don't miss you" line wasn't even his idea. Jessica had coached him, promised him a new gaming system if he said it convincingly enough, said she needed to push me away so I'd stop calling so much. The kid was 16, caught between loyalty to his mom and his own moral compass. I asked why he was telling me all this now. He looked up then, finally meeting my eyes. Said finding the house half empty had been a wake-up call. Said he'd seen who his mom really was when she'd spent the entire night on the phone with her friends instead of looking for me. More worried about the missing furniture than whether I was okay. That night after Tyler left, I sat on my balcony until 2 a.m., nursing a beer and trying to process everything. Kept thinking about all the signs I'd missed over the years. The late nights at work events, the weekends with friends I never met, the gradual distance that I'd attributed to normal relationship ebbs and flows. The next morning, my burner phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "I know Tyler visited you yesterday. Jessica." Somehow she'd gotten my new number, probably from Tyler's phone while he was sleeping. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Daniel, updated him on the situation. He advised keeping all communication through him going forward, standard procedure in contentious divorces. He reassured me we were still on solid legal ground with the property division and reminded me to document any harassment or threats. 2 weeks after the move, the doorbell camera Madeline had installed at my apartment caught Jessica sitting in her car in the visitor's parking lot. Just sitting there, staring at my building for 3 hours. The notification popped up on my phone while I was at physical therapy, sending my anxiety through the roof. My new place was supposed to be my safe space. Now it felt violated somehow. When I got home, her car was gone, but a package sat outside my door. No shipping label, just my name scrolled in Jessica's handwriting. And inside, Max's old dog bed, some photos of Tyler and me fishing, and a letter. I didn't read it right away, put it in a drawer and tried to forget it existed. That night, Jessica called from yet another new number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Her voice sounded different, subdued, lacking the usual manipulation tactics. She asked about Max, asked if I was healing okay, then went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she said she'd tell me everything if I wanted to know. No more lies, no more games, just the truth. Part of me wanted to hang up, to protect the progress I'd made, but a bigger part needed answers. Closure, I guess. So we talked for almost 2 hours. She admitted the affair with Victor had started 9 months before my accident. Said she'd been planning to ask for a divorce but could never find the right time. Then I got hurt, and suddenly there was a new calculus. If I died, she'd get the insurance money. If I lived, she'd have to split everything in a divorce. That's why she never visited. She was hoping I wouldn't make it. Let that sink in. My wife of 8 years was actively hoping I would die. When I survived, she started withdrawing money, preparing for the inevitable separation. The Belize tickets? A planned getaway with Victor once everything was settled. The jewelry store charge? A gift for him, not her. I listened to it all without interrupting, without reacting, just absorbing each revelation like another brick being added to the wall between my old life and my new one. When she finished, I had only one question. Why tell me this now? She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Said Victor had broken things off the day after I moved out. Apparently my psycho move, her words, had spooked him, made him realize she wasn't worth the drama. So now she was alone in a half-empty house with a son who barely spoke to her. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication even. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the games, the lies, the emotional roller coaster of it all. I told her I'd have Daniel handle everything from here on out, that we had nothing left to say to each other. A week later, Tyler asked if he could stay with me on weekends. Said things at home were tense. Jessica drinking more than usual, crying at random times, picking fights over nothing. I checked with Daniel, legally complicated but doable with Jessica's consent. Surprisingly, she agreed. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe just to get a break from parenting. Either way, I cleared out the second bedroom and set it up for Tyler. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a desk, and space for his stuff. The first weekend was awkward as hell. Neither of us knew quite how to be around each other in this new reality. We ended up spending most of it playing video games and ordering too much takeout. By the third weekend, we'd found our rhythm. Friday night movies, Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday dog walks with Max. Small, ordinary moments building a different kind of relationship. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings trudged forward. Jessica contested some of the property division initially, then suddenly dropped it. Signed everything without further argument. The house would be sold, proceeds split evenly. The rest of our assets divided according to Daniel's original plan. 6 weeks after the move, I was scrolling through Instagram when an unfamiliar account popped up in my suggestions. Olivia from the hospital. We'd exchanged numbers but hadn't really stayed in touch. Her profile was mostly hiking photos and food pics. Without overthinking it, I sent her a message. Just a casual check-in. She responded almost immediately. We met for coffee a few days later. Nothing romantic, just two people catching up. She'd changed jobs, moved to a different hospital. I showed her photos of Max in his new apartment life. Told her about Tyler's weekend visits. She listened in that same attentive way she had in the hospital, like every word mattered. As we were leaving, she mentioned a support group for people recovering from major injuries and life changes. Said it had helped her after her own divorce years ago. I took the info but didn't commit. Groups weren't really my thing. But 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in a community center meeting room, surrounded by strangers with their own stories. Didn't say much that first time, just listened. It was oddly comforting to be around people who understood the physical and emotional toll of rebuilding a life from scratch. 3 months post-move, things were finally settling into a new normal. My leg was healing, still with a limp, but no more crutches. The apartment actually looked like someone lived there, rather than a storage unit. Max had claimed the sunny spot by the sliding door as his personal domain. Then came the day of the final divorce hearing. I'd been dreading it for weeks. Not because I had second thoughts, but because it meant being in the same room as Jessica again. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Jessica sat across the aisle, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Hair done, makeup perfect. Like she was performing for an audience. When our eyes met, she gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. The proceedings were surprisingly anticlimactic. The judge reviewed our agreement, asked a few clarifying questions, then made it official with a stroke of his pen. 8 years of marriage dissolved in less than 30 minutes. As we walked out, Jessica stopped me in the hallway. For a moment, I thought she might cause a scene. Instead, she handed me an envelope. Said it was a copy of our wedding photo that I'd left behind. Said she thought I might want it someday for memory's sake. I thanked her politely, tucked it in my jacket pocket, and walked away. Didn't look back. The photo went straight into the trash when I got home. That night, I got a text from Tyler asking if our weekend plans were still on, despite the divorce being final. Something about that message, the uncertainty in it, the fear of more loss, hit me hard. Reminded me that while Jessica and I were done, my relationship with Tyler didn't have to end too. I texted back, "Of course, pizza and movie night tomorrow. Your pick this time." The next evening, as Tyler and I sat on the couch with Max sprawled across both our laps, I found myself actually laughing at some stupid joke in the movie. Not the polite chuckle you force to be social. A real laugh that caught me by surprise with its authenticity. And that's when it hit me. I was going to be okay. Not immediately, not perfectly, but eventually, genuinely okay. Last week, Jessica finally sold the house. Movers came for her remaining things. Madeline sent me a picture of the sold sign in the front yard. Should have felt monumental, but it was just another step in the process of untangling our lives. Yesterday, I had my final physical therapy session. The therapist said I'd made remarkable progress. That most people with my injury take twice as long to reach this point. I credited spite and stubbornness. She called it resilience. Maybe we're both right. So that's where things stand now. Divorce finalized, house sold, physical recovery on track, Tyler visiting regularly, Max thriving, me finding my way forward one day at a time. Oh, and Olivia? We've had coffee 6 times now, dinner twice. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just 2 people getting to know each other properly. She came over last weekend and taught Tyler how to make homemade pasta. The kitchen looked like a flower bomb had exploded, but it was the best meal I'd had in months. Jessica still texts occasionally, usually about Tyler, sometimes about practical matters, mail that needs forwarding, tax documents, insurance paperwork. Our conversations are civil but brief. The anger has faded to something more like distant acknowledgement. We were part of each other's stories for a while. Now we're not. As for Victor, he moved out of the neighborhood last month. Apparently decided a fresh start somewhere else was easier than navigating the aftermath of being the other man in a messy divorce. Can't say I blame him. Someone asked me recently if I regret how I handled things. if Operation Empty House was too extreme. Maybe it was. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Don't regret showing Jessica exactly what life without me looked like. In the end, she found an empty house. I found myself again. Thanks for listening to my story. Your support got me through some really dark days. Not sure I'll be posting more updates. Hoping my life gets boring enough that there's nothing worth sharing. That sounds pretty good right about now.